I never imagined that one decision would shatter everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the woman I believed myself to be. But here I am, telling you my story, not as a perfect wife, but as someone who found herself in a desperate, tragic moment that led me down a path I never intended to walk. This is the truth behind infidelity, cheating, and the unbearable emotional toll of financial collapse. Before the storm, everything seemed fine. My husband, Melvin, and I had a life most people envied, a modest suburban home in Illinois, jobs we were proud of, and a marriage we thought unbreakable. We were in our early 40s, and though life had thrown us a few curveballs, we always managed to bounce back together. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but we knew how to laugh, how to comfort each other, and how to love deeply. Then the financial ruin hit. It wasn't just a bump in the road, it was a wrecking ball. Melvin's job loss, the one that had kept us stable, was suddenly gone. It was one of those corporate cuts that didn't make any sense but hit so hard that it sent ripples of panic through everything we had worked for. The emotional consequences of cheating were nothing compared to the emotional toll of financial collapse. Melvin, a man proud of his work and his ability to provide, took the news harder than I could have imagined. I watched him change before my eyes, from the loving, ambitious man I married to someone broken, detached, and lost. The weight of the situation was unbearable. We were drowning in debt, unable to keep up with bills, and worst of all, Melvin was slowly disappearing, emotionally and physically. His once bright, hopeful eyes became dull and distant, as though he no longer had the will to fight. I tried to comfort him, to be there for him, but no matter how many times I told him everything would be okay, it wasn't. It wasn't for him, and it wasn't for me. I spent sleepless nights beside him, watching him spiral further into despair. He started drinking more, became withdrawn, and I could see how much he blamed himself for what had happened. He had always been the provider, the strong one. Now, I could hear him mutter in his sleep, talking about how he had failed us. And in the middle of all this chaos, my mind, my heart, and my fears began to cloud my judgment. I was terrified of losing him, terrified of losing everything we had. But more than anything, I was terrified of the silence between us, the growing distance, and the lack of communication. The love that had once been so full and free now felt like a distant memory. I didn't know what to do. That's when I turned to Miller. Miller was Melvin's boss, my husband's superior, someone he had worked with for years. I had always respected him professionally, but our interactions were always formal. A handshake here, a greeting there. But when Melvin lost his job, everything changed. Suddenly, I was forced into a corner. I felt I had no choice but to reach out to Miller, to ask him if there was any way he could help us, to help Melvin get his job back. I didn't plan what happened next. I didn't think it through. But in that moment, with everything crumbling around me, I went to him. I asked for help, but what I didn't expect was how the help would come. He didn't say yes right away. Instead, he looked at me with a strange glint in his eyes, one that I hadn't noticed before. He assured me he'd see what he could do, but he also mentioned something else, that there might be something I could do for him in return. It wasn't clear at first. But the moment those words left his mouth, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I was desperate, though, desperate to save Melvin, desperate to save us. What I didn't realize at the time was that, in my desperation, I was crossing a line I would never be able to uncross. This was the start of an affair I never thought I would have, and in some ways, it felt like the only solution to the crisis we were in. The intersection of financial stress and cheating had begun. I had no idea what would come next, but one thing was for sure, I had made a decision. A decision that would change the course of everything. And I want to thank all of you, my viewers and listeners, for sticking with me through this painful chapter of my life. Your likes, your comments, your support, it's all been a constant reminder that I'm not alone in this. You give me the courage to continue being honest, to share the raw truth of what happened and why I did what I did. So, thank you. I hope my story resonates with you in ways I never imagined. And now, I need to tell you what happened next. But this is where things start to get complicated, when nothing is as it seems, and every choice has a price. Stay tuned for the next chapter of this journey, because what I'm about to reveal will leave you questioning everything. Will Melissa's decision to seek help from Miller lead to the salvation of her marriage, or will it set her on a path she can never turn back from? What happens when desperation drives you to do something unthinkable? I never imagined I would be in this position, facing a man I once saw only as my husband's superior, someone who had the power to change our lives. Now, I was standing in front of him, a pawn in a game I didn't even know I had joined. The desperation I felt coursed through me, clouding my judgment as Miller, Melvin's boss, leaned in closer, his presence almost suffocating. His words lingered in the air, thick with the weight of everything that was happening. "Your husband's job back," Miller said, his tone so calm, it sent a shiver down my spine. "I can make that happen, but it will cost you." The emotional toll of financial collapse had already taken its toll on me, but now, I was faced with the struggle with infidelity during a financial crisis, a choice that seemed to offer salvation, but at what cost? I had always believed in the strength of marriage, in the sacredness of loyalty. But now, here I was, considering a deal I never thought I would entertain. How did I get here? Desperation is a dangerous thing. It creeps in like a shadow, covering the light of reason, and all you see is the thing you need to fix, Melvin's job, our future. I hadn't planned it, but somehow, in the moment of my lowest point, I was now faced with the reality of cheating in an attempt to salvage my marriage. "Tell me what you need," I whispered, my voice barely audible, as if saying it out loud would make it real, make it irreversible. Miller's gaze never wavered. He looked at me with a kind of calm that seemed unnatural, considering the gravity of what he was asking. "I just need you to show me how far you're willing to go to save your husband," he said. "If you want Melvin's job back, I need your time, your attention. You can give it to me, or I'll walk away, and your husband stays unemployed." It was a threat, wrapped in the false guise of an offer. And in that moment, I felt something shift inside me. A mixture of anger, shame, and a dangerous sense of powerlessness. How could I let this happen? How could I even entertain the thought of an affair with a man who was nothing more than my husband's boss? But the financial ruin had crippled us. Melvin's job loss was just the tip of the iceberg. The mounting debt, the unpaid bills, the looming fear of what would happen if we couldn't get back on track, it all weighed on my shoulders. And here was Miller, offering a way out, offering salvation in exchange for something I had always held sacred. Was it a betrayal? Absolutely. Did I know at that moment the emotional consequences of cheating? Not fully. The complexity of infidelity and broken communication hadn't even begun to sink in. I hated myself for considering it, but I was terrified of losing everything. The quiet voice in my head told me I could fix it. This was the solution to all our problems. I would give Miller what he wanted, get Melvin his job back, and then I could try to pick up the pieces of our broken marriage. "I'll do whatever it takes," I said, my voice trembling. Miller's smile was slow, deliberate. It was a smile I would come to regret. He leaned back in his chair, clearly satisfied. "Good. You'll start tonight." The moment the words left his mouth, I felt my stomach twist. The reality of what was happening began to settle in. But at that moment, the thought of Melvin's job, the future of our marriage, drowned out everything else. Over the next few weeks, I found myself meeting Miller in secret, each encounter more intimate than the last. The affair began innocently enough, but with every meeting, I could feel the lines between right and wrong blur. I would justify it to myself, telling myself that this was the only way to fix everything. Melvin's job was still the focal point, and everything else was secondary. The intersection of financial stress and cheating was not a path I had ever imagined walking, but I found myself in its grip. But then, the dynamics shifted. I didn't realize how far Miller was willing to go to manipulate me. With each meeting, I could feel him tightening his hold. What had started as a simple deal was quickly turning into something far more sinister. One afternoon, as I sat across from him in his office, the conversation turned dark. "You know, this could be more than just a favor, Melissa," Miller said, his voice low. If you want Melvin's job back, you'll need to make sure I'm satisfied with your commitment. You wouldn't want to disappoint me, would you? The reality of the betrayal I was committing hit me like a slap in the face. But the worst part was the growing realization that this wasn't just about fixing our financial problems. It was about power. Miller wasn't just doing this out of kindness, he was using my desperation as leverage. And that's when I realized the truth. I was no longer just a woman trying to save her marriage. I had become an unwilling participant in a game where the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. The emotional consequences of cheating were mounting with every moment I spent in Miller's presence, but I told myself I had no choice. What else could I do? But I didn't know the worst was yet to come. What will Melissa do now that she realizes she's deeper in the affair than she ever imagined? Will the betrayal she's committed cost her more than just her marriage? Will the truth about Miller's manipulation come to light? I had never imagined myself in this position, standing here with Miller, my husband's boss, feeling vulnerable in ways I hadn't thought possible. The weight of the affair began to settle in, not as an abstract thought, but as something real, tangible. I had crossed a line I could never uncross, and now I was forced to face the consequences of my own desperation. The emotional toll was already taking its toll on me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't back out. Miller was standing across the room, his posture relaxed yet authoritative. He had always been in control, and in this moment, I was learning just how much power he wielded over me. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to steady myself. How had it come to this? How had I ended up here, in his office, so far away from the life I once knew with Melvin? You know why I'm doing this, Miller said, his voice low, almost seductive. I'm doing this to help you. To help Melvin. His words should have comforted me, but they didn't. All I could feel was manipulation hanging in the air between us. He had convinced me that helping him was the only way to fix everything, the job loss, the financial ruin, Melvin's crisis, but at what cost? How had I allowed myself to believe that I had no other options, that betrayal and deceit were the only solutions? I know, Miller, I whispered, barely able to speak. But this isn't what I wanted. I never imagined. Never imagined what? He stepped toward me, his eyes darkening as he crossed the room with slow, deliberate steps. That you would be in this position? That infidelity could be the way out? His words stung, but they rang true. I hadn't imagined it. I never thought I'd be in this situation, becoming tangled in an affair to solve the crisis we were facing. But now, as Miller's hand brushed against mine, the tension between us became undeniable. The passion was intense, but so was the feeling of guilt. How could I betray my husband, the man I loved, just to fix things? Miller must have sensed my hesitation because he moved closer, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered, "We both know what this is, Melissa. You're just too afraid to admit it." I wanted to pull away. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream that this wasn't me, that this wasn't who I was supposed to be. But desperation kept me in place. I couldn't risk losing Melvin's job, couldn't let the financial ruin swallow us whole. The emotional consequences of cheating were already gnawing at me, but my mind kept going back to one thing, Melvin. I told myself I was doing this for him, for our future. Miller, I started, but my words trailed off as his hand found its way to my waist. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver down my spine. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the plan. But with every touch, every movement, I was pulled deeper into something I didn't know how to escape. "You don't have to say anything, Melissa," Miller murmured, his voice now commanding. "Just let go. Let me help you get what you want." I had no idea what was happening anymore. The lines between right and wrong had blurred so much that I couldn't see where they began and ended. The power dynamics had shifted. Miller had taken control, and I was no longer in charge. I was just a pawn in his game. His promises were like honey, sweet but sticky, hard to get out of once you're caught. The secrecy of it all, the hiddenness of what was happening behind closed doors, only made it feel more dangerous, more intense. I couldn't stop. I didn't know how to. The manipulation was too strong, and the stakes were too high. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Melvin, his job, and the marriage I thought I could save. I was spiraling into something I didn't want, but something I couldn't control. And then, when I thought it couldn't get worse, I noticed it. The small blinking light on the desk, hidden just under a stack of papers, nearly invisible if you weren't looking for it. The hidden camera. I froze. My heart stopped. I had been recorded everything. Every word. Every kiss. Every touch. Miller had set this up from the beginning. I was being watched, manipulated into believing I had no choice, and now, I was trapped. My body went numb as the realization hit me. I had become part of his twisted game. He wasn't just exploiting my desperation for leverage, he was using it to control me, to control everything. Miller, what is this? I stammered, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. He smiled, slow and knowing. Don't worry, Melissa. This is all part of the plan. I've got you right where I want you. The guilt was suffocating now. The betrayal felt like a heavy weight on my chest. How had I let it go this far? But with the hidden camera recording everything, I had no way to undo it. I had no way to stop. My heart ached with the realization that I had been manipulated into this position, but I didn't know how to get out. The room seemed to close in on me as Miller stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. He was no longer just the man who had promised to help. He was the man who had taken control of everything, my vulnerability, my trust, my marriage. I was trapped in a web of lies and deceit, and there was no escape. What will happen when Melissa discovers the full extent of Miller's manipulation? Can she break free from the control he has over her, or is she doomed to stay trapped in the web of affair, deceit, and betrayal? The emotional consequences of her choices will come to light. The moment I saw him standing in the doorway of Miller's office, everything in my world shifted. Time seemed to slow, the air growing thick with disbelief. Melvin, my husband, my partner, the man I promised to love and cherish, was standing there, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock and rage. It didn't make sense at first. I couldn't understand how he had found me here, caught in the very moment of betrayal that I had hoped to hide from him. And yet, there he was. Melvin. My Melvin, the man who had always been there for me, the man I had once promised never to hurt. But I had hurt him more than I ever imagined possible. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body was frozen in a moment of complete devastation. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, all of it stood in front of me, in the form of my husband's shattered expression. The emotional turmoil was suffocating as I stood there, facing the consequences of my choices. Melissa. Melvin's voice broke through the silence, low and filled with a rawness I had never heard before. His eyes flicked from me to Miller, who was sitting back in his chair, a smug look on his face as if this were some game. But it wasn't a game. This was real life, and the truth was more painful than I could have ever imagined. How could you? Melvin's words were a guttural sound, filled with anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. After everything we've been through, everything we've built, how could you betray me like this? I felt the weight of guilt wash over me like a tidal wave. The shame of what I had done was suffocating, and in that moment, I realized that no amount of justification or rationalization would ever make this right. I had crossed a line I couldn't take back. I'm so sorry, Melvin, I whispered, my voice cracking as the tears I had held back for so long began to fall. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. But my apologies felt empty. They were just words. Words that couldn't undo the damage I had caused. Betrayal in a marriage was a wound that couldn't be healed by mere apologies. And I knew, deep down, that this moment, the moment Melvin walked in and saw me with Miller, would forever change everything between us. He took a step closer, his fists clenched, and I could feel the tension in the room grow unbearable. The emotional consequences of an affair in marriage were too vast to comprehend in one moment, and I realized that Melvin's anger was just the beginning of the storm. What would come next? Would he ever be able to forgive me? Could he? I don't know what to say to you, Melissa, Melvin said, his voice breaking as he looked at me, his eyes filled with hurt. I never imagined you would do this. How do we fix this? How can I trust you again? I didn't know how to answer him. Trust had been shattered, and the foundation of our marriage was cracked. All of the promises we had made to each other, everything we had built, felt like it was crumbling around us. The weight of my actions bore down on me as I stood there, unable to offer him any real comfort. Miller, who had been sitting quietly, watching the entire scene unfold, finally spoke, his voice cutting through the tension. You're both adults. You can handle this, right? Melissa and I have already had our moments. It's done now, Melvin. Don't waste time trying to fix something that's already broken. His words were like a slap in the face. He had no right to intervene in this moment. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the two of us, Melvin and me, and the emotional toll this had taken on our relationship. I could feel the hurt and betrayal radiating off of him. He was hurting, and it was all because of my choices. Melvin turned to Miller, his eyes dark with fury. You've taken everything from me. You think this is some game? His voice was filled with venom, but it was more than just anger. It was grief. The pain of losing me, the woman he loved, to someone else. Get out. Now. Miller's smirk faltered for a moment, but he didn't move. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, looking between us. Fine. But you both know the truth now. It's up to you, Melvin, whether you want to salvage this or not. But I doubt she's worth the fight. With that, Miller stood and walked out, leaving us standing in silence, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. I couldn't even bring myself to look at him. I was too focused on Melvin, the man I had just shattered with my betrayal. Melvin stood there, frozen for a moment, his fists still clenched at his sides. I could see the internal battle he was fighting, the war between anger and hurt, between wanting to forgive me and wanting to walk away. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. How do we move forward from this, Melissa? How do we fix this? Can we even fix this? The question hung in the air like a heavy weight, and I felt a surge of guilt and shame crash over me again. I had no answer for him. I didn't know how to make it right. Melvin, I know I've hurt you in ways I can't take back, I said, my voice trembling. I know this isn't just something you can forgive in an instant. But please, let me try. Let me show you that I am willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild the trust I've broken. He shook his head slowly, the look of pain in his eyes enough to break my heart all over again. I don't know if I can trust you again, Melissa. I don't know if I can ever forget what you've done. The emotional consequences of my choices were beginning to sink in fully. The trust that we had worked so hard to build was gone, and I could see the emotional toll it had taken on Melvin, the hurt, the confusion, the sadness in his eyes. Betrayal in a marriage was one of the hardest things to overcome, and I realized now that it wasn't just a momentary lapse. It was a series of actions that had led us here, and it would take time, maybe more time than I had hoped, to heal. Melvin, please. I know I've broken you, but I want to try to fix this, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I love you. And I'm so sorry for what I've done. Please, let's go to therapy. Let's rebuild what we have. He didn't say anything at first, but I could see the pain in his eyes. It was clear he wasn't sure if he could forgive me, if he could ever trust me again. But there was a small glimmer of hope in his gaze, a small, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this. Can Melvin find it in his heart to forgive Melissa? Will they be able to rebuild the trust that was shattered by the affair, or has the damage been done beyond repair? The answer will come in the next part. I want to take a moment to truly appreciate all of you, my amazing viewers, for your time and support. You've been with me through every twist and turn of this story, and your engagement means the world to me. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Now, I need your help. If you're enjoying this story, please don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know what you think might happen next. What do you think will unfold in the next part of the story? I'd love to hear your predictions. And hey, share this story with your friends and family, let them join in on the excitement too. Most importantly, make sure you click that subscribe button and enable the notifications bell on all, so you're always in the loop and never miss the next chapter, especially the one coming this Saturday. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Trust me, the drama is just getting started. Again, thank you all for your support. I can't wait to continue this journey with you. Stay tuned.